All right, well, this is going to be our first episode of Manga for Dummies, which will be a series where we look at other completed manga series. We're going to pretty much just go through the whole series, but chapter by chapter, arc by arc, and then we'll do a deep dive, give our thoughts without spoiling ahead. So to do that, there's me, Yuan, and there's also...
I'm VJ. Hi. Fucking, I'm nervous, dude.
And I'm Max. Nice to meet you.
All right, perfect. So for our first series, we wanted to pick something that wasn't exactly too long, but it wasn't too short, that was decently well known. So we ended up just choosing something that you probably heard of. So it's called Fullmetal Alchemist, FMA for short. So to start, I think it's just cool if I were to ask you guys, what do you guys know about Fullmetal Alchemist, and what's your relationship with the series itself?
I mean, I've read through it and I've watched the anime, so you could say I'm pretty familiar. It has been a while though, so I'm pretty excited to get back into it.
For me, I've just watched the anime, both of them, Brotherhood and the first one they made, and just starting to read the manga for the first time. So I'm hoping to see what the differences are.
Which did you watch first, dude?
The Fullmetal Alchemist.
What did you think of it?
2003 one?
Yeah.
2003 on YTV.
Oh,
yo, the throwbacks. What did you think of it compared to the new one?
I thought the art was better on the first one.
Really?
At the start, then like you start looking at Brotherhood more and more, and I think the story got so much better, and then I thought the character drawing was also better. So
cool.
All right, cool. So on this first episode, we'll mainly be just running through the show itself. Well, not the show, the series itself. So we're gonna give some background information, and then we're gonna really study the first 5 chapters. So if you want to read along, those are the first 5 chapters. So I think I'm just gonna throw out some fun facts.
Go for it.
So there's actually another podcast called Wizard and the Bruiser who did a pretty cool overview of everything about Fullmetal Alchemist except for the story itself. So if you ever want to learn more, that's a good companion piece to this. So the series was done by Hiromu Arakawa. Now, VJ,
apologies for butchering that name if that's the case, by the way.
No, the thing is, you just don't apologize and pretend that you're always right. So
oh wow, okay. Yeah, that won't make anybody hate us.
Yeah, okay. So what do you guys know anything about this person?
I don't.
All right.
Sounds Japanese.
Yes. Okay. That's very good.
Japanese. Yeah.
All right. So here's a few facts. So first of all, it is a female mangaka.
Oh,
no way! Wow, I didn't know that.
What's a mangaka?
Mangaka is pretty much
author,
just
like a manga artist.
Exactly.
Oh.
Can you guys guess the age that she first started publishing Fullmetal Alchemist?
Yo, she was 15.
Yeah, I want to say because of the Elric brothers' age, I want to say 15 too.
So you guys are actually really far off. It's her first
42.
chapter came out at 28 years old.
Oh shit!
Which is very old, even for manga artists. The reason being that she was actually on a farm family, so she didn't get to go to Tokyo where all the fancy manga magazines are.
The mainstream stuff.
Yeah, so she didn't really get a chance until she was really older. And then she became an assistant, and then until she finally got her opportunity to publish something at 20 years old.
Oh.
I mean, is there a typical age where mangakas start doing their stuff?
So no, there's not really a typical age, but
I mean, it's an artist type profession, isn't it? Like,
yeah, so you don't really get your breakthrough. You know, the thing is, like, even if most people start out as assistants to other bigger names,
okay.
But I don't know how the crediting system works. Like here we have IMDb for like productions, but like when we talk about manga, like there's rarely like assistant writer or assistant drawer or something like that. So it's really hard to get your name out. So it's more like an inside thing.
Well, to be fair, I mean, we don't really have the means to read, hard copy versions of the manga itself. So I would assume that in those magazines like Shonen Jump and stuff, I would assume that the author is credited at the end.
Yeah, that might be it. So after Fullmetal Alchemist, which is by far her most successful work, she has done some other work. I'm just gonna throw the names out. I want to know if you guys ever heard of them. So the biggest one I think is Silver Spoon.
Wait, what is this?
It's her second work after Fullmetal Alchemist.
I've
Oh,
heard
wow.
the title, but I've never actually read it.
So Silver Spoon is just about like a farming high school. So it's
What the
actually
hell?
based it's sort of like based on her childhood. I actually read it. It's right now on a hiatus, so it's just really a long wait. But yeah, it's a pretty decent palate cleanser after you finish a Fullmetal Alchemist. She
Really?
also drew Hero Tales and Heroic Legend of Arslan. I've never read Hero Tales, but Arslan isn't written by her, but it's drawn by her, and it's pretty good.
Huh. I do want to state for the record that of the three of us, I think Yuan is the most veteran manga and anime watcher. I think me and Max hover at around the same level. I'd say I'm maybe a little more knowledgeable than him in terms of shows watched and series read.
Most likely.
But yeah. So if you just hear Yuan going off and me and Max not talking, it's because we're truly listening and invested in what he's saying because we probably don't know it.
And to be fair, I did do some research, so it's not all in my brain. All right,
Sure.
so let's go back to Fullmetal Alchemist itself. It ran from
Yeah, sorry about
2001.
that.
It ran from 2001 to 2010, so that's a 9-year span. And it was published
Damn,
in
9 years.
Monthly Shonen Gangan, which is published by Square Enix. Do you guys know anything about Square Enix?
No, are you serious?
Yeah, it's by Square Enix.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, they made Final Fantasy, or they
Yeah,
published it.
that's
Is that what
the
it
only
is?
thing I know about Square Enix.
Yeah, it's
They
me.
publish,
If
man.
you heard of Square Enix, it's probably through Final Fantasy,
And Kingdom Hearts
Kingdom
Yeah,
Hearts,
sorry.
Dragon Quest.
for 3% of people. Well, I mean, if they're listening to this, then it's probably more than 3%.
Yeah. So the whole manga spanned 27 volumes, and
Yeah.
it created two animes, which we sort of briefly talked about, the 2003 one and the 2009 one.
Yeah.
The 2003 one is just called Fullmetal Alchemist, and 2009 was called Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Superior story. Yeah.
we did sort of talk about that, the series is pretty popular. So I actually went on my anime list, which isn't exactly the best place to go, but it's a good aggregator of opinions.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you guys to guess how highly ranked in terms of manga is it on those lists.
I'd say top 10 for sure.
Manga?
So
Top 100?
But I'm
Top-
sure you're gonna pull the rug out from under us again. So
That's why.
why don't you go ahead and say it?
all right, so it is ranked third highest manga under
Got 'em.
Berserk and
Oh, my bad.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run. But honestly, to me, if we consider the fact that people who voted for Berserk are probably suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, and
I would agree, as I am one of those people.
and honestly, I think the JoJo guys sort of cheated because they actually separated each of the sagas into like a separate thing that you could vote for. So I think
Yeah,
that's,
they have 7
Do all
mangas
their
out right now.
sagas get a separate voting?
yeah. So I think that's a little
Yeah,
bit of a
because
cheat.
they're each different series technically. To
I
be
mean,
to
they're
be
all
fair
not the
though,
same story anymore, so.
that's the thing. I'd say it's appropriate that they do it because, after the second one, things shift wildly.
Yeah,
But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's light cheating, I guess.
yeah. I think it's a little bit cheat here. In
You're
terms
telling
of
me One Piece isn't in the top 3? Disappointed.
well, One Piece is not in the top 3.
Man,
but
are we
it's
about to
up
have
there.
a hot take in the first 4 minutes of our first episode?
I'm sorry.
I don't like One Piece. Okay, there, I said it, but we're not talking about One Piece today. Let's move back to Fullmetal Alchemist.
All right, so the animes themselves are actually really popular too. So let's do a quick guess of where Brotherhood and the original stand.
I'd say top 5 again. Yeah, I think that's fair.
So
Oh, same.
Brotherhood, anyway.
is
the
by
faith-
far the number
best.
one anime.
Yup.
Yeah.
Now the original one isn't really ranked as high in terms of votes.
Mm.
So it's ranked like 200 something. So it's not as like widely acclaimed.
Hmm.
But if we look at the number of people that said they've watched it, it's actually the 39th most popular anime. So there's
Like
actually,
according to views,
yeah, yeah, in
basically.
terms of
Okay,
views, so it's still a lot. In terms of success, the whole series sold for 70.3 million volumes,
good for her.
making it the
Wow.
26th best-selling title.
Damn.
And it's also the only series published by Enix to have sold over 50 million.
Hey,
How
nice.
many have they published?
They've published a lot. You've probably heard of a few. I think they did like Dragon Quest stuff. Uh,
Yeah, okay.
but those don't have like a international appeal, so they don't haven't sold as much as Fullmetal Alchemist.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
And if we
I
consider,
I looked at a few Dragon Quest. They weren't that great. So
I read the whole series.
yeah, I read Adventure of Dai, which I really liked as a kid.
Yeah, with the kid with the emblem on his forehead or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah, that
I
one
quite
was
enjoyed it.
wild.
But
It's
yeah,
very Dragon
if we
Ball though.
consider like the bigger magazines like Shonen Jump and stuff like that, it's actually it's quite rare to find something from Shonen Gangan to be on the list.
Wow.
And finally,
Looks like the planets really aligned for this girl. I'm really happy.
I mean, you say girl, but the time by the time she started, she was a full-fledged woman, dude.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. This woman. It's not. I'm not being disrespectful. I mean, she's a girl and we're boys. It's just. Anyway.
semantics.
All right.
Semantics.
Okay. So let's see. Full Metal Alchemist. So I think a good place to start with, just for VJ as the most artistically talented among us, can you just give us like a brief explanation of the type of atmosphere, type of setting it's put in?
Honestly, it was the art is something I'd very much like to touch on. Before we go to it, I do want to briefly come back to the animes themselves. We will get to talking about the story and stuff, but I'm truly curious. Do you guys remember the anime at all? The first one?
Yes.
I
Because I
definitely
don't.
remember.
I don't
I
remember any of it.
so I
I
think
mean, story wise, I don't remember. I just remember art wise that the faces are more round than the Brotherhood or the manga itself, and that bugged me a lot.
That is an apt observation there, Max.
It was
What,
disturbingly round. What can I say?
yeah, I
yeah.
mean, in terms of plot itself, though, like, what was it about if it wasn't following the manga?
Okay, so I think I can explain because I watched it like roughly as it was airing as a kid,
Hmm.
but I gave it a real good pause right around where we're gonna stop talking about the series today.
Hmm.
So the idea of Fullmetal Alchemist is that it had like a darker tone at the beginning. Like if we compare the scene that we're gonna talk about today,
Oh
and
God.
in the same scene, Brotherhood does it better in some sense, like visually, but in a
Hmm.
similar sense, the atmosphere made more sense in the original.
Okay.
But somewhere down the line, what happened is that the manga wasn't able. The manga started to. The manga was still on a consistent publishing rate, but the
Hmm.
anime was coming out too quickly. So you know that thing where um, instead of filler
Filler.
arcs, they just decided to and
Write their own story.
yeah, they write their own story. And Hiromu
Okay.
Arakawa, the mangaka, gave it the go ahead because she
Okay.
considered the anime to be its own self.
Okay.
So she didn't like force them to do anything. They could have
Cool.
probably
Cool.
gone down the filler arc, like the filler arcs, but I don't think she wanted that in the end.
Yeah, because this is a manga with no filler. Everything is important to the story, you know? Like everything they do has a purpose. Because even in manga sometimes there are filler arcs, I guess you can say, stuff that's just to pan out the you know, I don't really want to go there, but
Because I'm about to talk here, and I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't let that
well,
go.
I mean, for example, in One Piece, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you know, when the whole goal is to get to One Piece, and this is, you know, Luffy's main goal and stuff, I feel like I I feel like there is a lot of pandering, a lot of stretching the plot out.
Stretching the plot.
Yeah, stretching the plot, and it can help right? It builds a very rich world, and I think a YouTuber that me and you all know, Giguk, I think. You remember him, Yuan?
Yeah, I remember him.
He talks about how each island or each, world or whatever is its own adventure contained within itself.
Right.
And I feel like that can work for a certain amount of time, but eventually, and this is what happened to me with One Piece itself, is that I want to know what happens. I'm a big fan of overarching plots and seeing their conclusion and all that. And so seeing all these mini stories is fun to a certain extent, but at some point I just want to get to the meat of the stuff.
That's where it's similar with the Fullmetal Alchemist. Like they caught up to the manga artists, so
yeah, exactly. Exactly. In terms of the anime itself from 2003, that's its own thing. But I mean, for the manga and the Brotherhood anime itself, it's its own. There is no filler. Everything that happens in the plot serves the plot in some way. It addresses themes from the manga and the series overall, and concepts that are constantly revisited throughout the series. And I feel like that's excellent storytelling and writing.
Well, that's also why they probably restarted the anime series.
I agree.
To have the story that the artist wanted to portray.
Now, to be fair, I think there's like two different goals of the two series. One is that, like, for example, One Piece has I would argue has far better world building. So like you would know, like, for example, this isn't a One Piece series, but you would know that there's like snails for phones, which like that's pretty cool. But like on the other hand, like with Fullmetal Alchemist, like there's honestly a more concise story, and that's like almost better planned. But at the same time, we don't know as much as we would from the One Piece series.
I get it. I get what you're saying for sure. But you know what? We'll save One Piece for a later episode because it's going to be juicy, that's for sure.
And to be fair, I think One Piece will be not ending anytime soon, so we won't need to tackle it anytime soon.
Exactly.
So the series came out monthly in the magazine, because Monthly Shonen Jump is Monthly Shonen Gangan is a monthly series. So what happens is that each chapter is about roughly 2 to 3 times the length of a usual Shonen Jump chapter. So for example, the chapters that we are reading today actually have like 40 plus pages, which is actually pretty insane if we consider how many chapters there are in total. And it does come out at the end to roughly about 100 chapters, give or take 1 or 2. So I think we might as well just start with the one shot, which is chapter 0. So I think we all read the chapter 0, right? So I guess, Max, since this is your first time reading the manga, can you just give us a quick overview of what happened in chapter 0?
So the Elric brothers, the 2 alchemists, they arrive in a town looking for a stone. And the stone that they're looking for is the Philosopher's Stone, and they're looking for this because they lost their bodies in trying to revive their mother. So this is basically a plot premise where they're trying to find the stone to bring back their old selves, their bodies back to normal, because of a sin they committed. And so this is where this first one shot starts at.
Okay, so I guess the first question is, considering most of the time one-shots are used to pitch, would you guys have picked this up?
Absolutely. I thought it was great. I will say, and this is not to rag on the people who took the time to translate the manga itself, but I will say for the most part, in most versions I've seen, the translation in the one-shot is kind of rough, just a little bit. It gets the message across, obviously, but it always tends to take me out of it when, they're in a very tense and serious moment and the English is just wrong,
I mean, they have all these sound translations, or some of them are kind of wonky, but...
Yeah, but that, I feel like that didn't really take away from the overall experience. Honestly, I will say, minus the looseness of the rules of alchemy itself, which is more explicitly stated in the later chapters or when the series actually kicks off.
Right.
I think the pitch was brilliant. It perfectly showcases our main characters' personalities and their story. Like Max said, their whole goal is to find the Philosopher's Stone to bring back their bodies and stuff. And it introduces the reader to a larger world that I'm curious to learn more about as I read on. So, going back to what you said about the world building in One Piece, we're just talking about One Piece today. I do see what you're saying with the world building maybe being stronger in other parts, but I feel like the series does a good job of world building if it makes you curious about the world itself. And I feel like they very organically introduce premises like the government corruption and this and that within the world itself, and they do it very naturally through dialogue in between characters, and that makes me curious to read on and know what they're talking about and learn more about the world itself.
So with all that said, do you guys feel that they explain alchemy good enough? Because at times, at least for here, it didn't seem too much like magic, but at certain points, I do feel that it sort of feels like magic.
Well, in the story, as you saw when they tried to fix the vase,
Mm-hmm.
like the reader won't necessarily understand the rules because they explain none of it, but everyone in the world seems to understand what alchemy is itself.
Yeah, I do like that alchemy isn't really like a hidden magic. It's like understood, but not everybody could do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And I think it's even mentioned at one point. No, it's not mentioned in this chapter. It's mentioned in a later chapter that you can even study it for a bit and then just give up, but you can still technically do it as a regular person. You don't have to be.
Exactly. They make it an approachable concept kind of thing. It's not taboo, it's not magic, it's just you really need to put the time in and learn it.
Right. And not everybody has that time or talent, and they have their own lives to live.
Exactly.
So I think we could just go ahead and do chapter 1, because there's a lot of things that are sort of transferred over in part or in full, that sort of reappear in the following chapters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talking about the rules of alchemy itself before, like I said in the one shot, it was a little loose. I can't. I'm trying to think of a specific example that I had. It was when, if I'm not mistaken, Ed is approached by the General Alzner or whatever his name is.
The big bad in one shot.
Exactly, the big bad in the pitch in the one shot, and he asks for an immortal body, right? Ed complies with him and does what he asks, but he finds a loophole in it, and puts like a screw in the transmutation so that over time the general's body would become iron.
Right.
Which I think was great irony and stuff. No pun intended. It was good irony, but at the same time, I feel that later in the series that wouldn't really have flown with the logic of alchemy and everything. And this is why I said the rules were maybe a little more loose. There was like a time delay transmutation, which doesn't really exist in the official, in air quotes, world of Fullmetal Alchemist.
Because all the transmutations are technically immediate.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. So I feel minus that one thing in the one shot itself, following immediately in chapter 1, they start by, before any major alchemy is performed, they explain the rules and they keep to those rules for, I'd say all of the series for the most part, minus the end where we won't spoil anything, but things, they escalate and it doesn't become bad, but it becomes a lot compared to what they start with,
Right. So one last thing before we move out of the one shot is I just re-looking at it again, like the art is really, really good.
Yeah, sorry to bring back what you were asking me before about the art itself. I think it is really good, and I want to preface this by saying, because Max, you brought this up, that the art can sometimes be off-putting in some series sometimes. Yeah. I will play the devil's advocate here, because I'm not excusing bad art in manga, because sometimes it is not the prettiest thing to look at. But I will say that the more you look and read on in the series itself, the less the art matters, I guess I could say. Like you don't mind it as much.
Right,
It just
you're
becomes
accustomed to
normal
it.
for you. Exactly, you familiarize yourself. Like yeah, that's pretty much it.
So I think one thing is that the art style isn't like it's great that it's not chibi. Like the eyes aren't like excessively large.
Hmm.
They look like actual humans, to be honest.
It's proportionate
Yeah,
to
it
what
makes
they
sense.
should look
Everything
like.
makes sense.
Yeah.
The bad guy has he has like lines on his face. When they get mad, you can see like their eyebrows are furrowing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And especially when what's his name? Elric? Edward, yeah, that's it. Edward
Gets
rips
small.
off rips off his jacket, and then he shows his arm. Like the amount of detail on that full what's it called? Automail or whatever it's
The
called.
automail, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dude, the detail is actually insane.
Yeah, I completely agree, but I do want to hear Max's opinion on the art. Having said what I said before, I give in my 2 cents as the resident art expert.
I really enjoy the manga art a lot more than the anime art. As I said, I thought the anime art was very round in here. Everything has it has angles. It's sharp. Like you can see like the distinction in the faces of the cheekbones and everything. So
Hmm.
it's a lot better to look at.
You're saying it's cleaner in the manga.
Yes, exactly.
I get you. I get you. Well, I totally agree with what you guys are saying. I thought the use of the lines were very simple and they're effective and sharp. I did notice as well, at least in these first 5 chapters, it probably changes later on because, as you know, with more budget, they can
Right.
afford to do more things with the art itself. They use this specific filter in Ed's coat and Al's armor, and it really makes them pop. And I found myself very often just my eyes were guided to where they were. I would never lose them in a crowd type of thing. And I don't know if this is something you guys noticed either, was it?
I
Yeah,
see
I
it
did
now,
notice that.
looking
Yeah.
at it again.
It
Yeah,
becomes more
they
obvious
use
now that you mention it.
exactly. They use that little grayed out filter with a little bit of texture,
Mhm.
and they constantly use it on the protagonists, which I think is a really smart move on the part of the artist because it brings them to the forefront, and you can never lose them in a crowd, as I said. Aside from that, I really love the character designs,
Oh, dude, the
specifically.
Alphonse's armor. Oh, that is
Exactly,
beautiful.
exactly. I love their designs. It's their I'd go as far to say it's iconic. You know, I feel like a lot of us, just me and a friend of ours, Jag, we learned how to draw armor by studying Al's armor itself. And I think it's a beautiful piece. The designs themselves, like you were saying, the automail, it all looks connected and it looks like it could work in the real world, which is the job of an artist.
Right.
And I think the artist herself did it beautifully. And I also, this is something I noticed reading back, is that I loved the character design between both characters. There's a stark contrast you see in terms of height, with Al being a large suit of armor and being bulky, and you see Ed himself being more short and slim. And you, in terms of personality too, you see Al as a calm and collected person versus Ed, who's maybe a bit of a hothead and still a little immature.
Right. He's like compensating for his height.
Exactly, and that goes a little beyond the art itself, but the art is a clear, it's a clear representation of that, if you will. With Ed's red. I mean, it's not red in the manga, obviously, but in the anime, you see it's red, which can represent his passion and stuff. And I feel like past the one shot, the art has only become sharper. Again, going back to that filter and stuff, and just the use of lines is really expertly done, and I really like it.
So at the same time, I do feel that she sort of shows like her funner side, like the way
Hmm.
when he summons a sword. Well, not summon, but he transmutes a sword. The
Yeah.
sword, the sword looks like a shark.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's a good thing I wanted to talk about, but it plays into a larger aspect, so I'll hold off on it.
Hmm.
But having said all this, do you guys notice these things in the art, or am I just completely in the dark here?
No, I definitely notice there's like some key things that makes it like visually attractive, that makes everything make sense. That I
Hmm.
don't think not everybody gets it the first shot.
I
As a
Right.
definitely
first try,
thought
this is
that
insanely impressive.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree with you 100%. It's really great. Sorry, Max, what were you gonna say?
the shading of the characters and the filter that they use.
Hmm.
I didn't realize it at first, but when you mention it, going back to everything, it's very obvious.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with you on that.
That's great. Oh, well, I'm glad I wasn't completely in the dark there. That's fun.
All right, cool. So we spent actually a surprisingly large amount of time on the one shot. So let's head into chapter one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think just from the first chapter where we see the first page of the first chapter where we just see Edward there with no leg with his is that his left or his right? Let's see.
It's
His
his
left.
left.
Yeah.
It's
His
his
left.
With his
yeah,
left
yeah.
leg gone, it's just such a powerful image.
Of course, it really grips your attention right off the bat.
And then, well, I guess once again we could just have Max do a quick run through of what exactly happened in chapter one.
Sure. Go ahead, Max.
So, sort of similarly to the previous chapter we visited, sort of the one shot, this
Mhm.
sort of takes setting in a similar town with similar characters. So they basically just retook the same characters and placed them in a different setting.
Mhm.
So we're in a town where religion is very prosperous, and they all believe in this one man and religion called Leto. And he performs miracles every day, and it says he can bring people back to life. So here, the Elric brothers visit the town for the first time because they've heard news of, well, they're still in the search for the Philosopher's Stone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so they're walking through town and they meet different types of people, and finally at one point when they're resting, they perform alchemy, and this leads them to meeting with the said high priest of the religion, because he is doing magic that shouldn't be done, that
Mm.
isn't technically possible.
Mhm.
Right.
And
Okay.
And
so,
what did you think of it overall, Max?
well, I thought it was like the pilot episode. That,
Mhm.
well, pilot.
Yeah, probably
Yeah,
chapter.
the pilot episode that I saw, like, because I saw this episode a lot on TV.
Mhm.
So I thought it was really great, like introducing like a sort of a desert town area that's like an oasis.
Mhm. Well, this is exactly what I was talking about before, in terms of the world richness. You know, it was like I said. I feel like this first chapter took everything the one shot did and did it better. You know, it built upon the pitch and this chapter, but you know the chapters coming after it as well. They reintroduce this vast and rich world with major plot elements that are presented like early on in the series, such as the Philosopher's Stone itself and the Elric brothers' objectives. And also, this is something I noticed too, reading back, is that often you see phrases that are repeated. You know, like the dogs of the army sentence.
Oh, right. Yeah, like it's a derogative term.
Yeah, exactly. Like this theme is constantly being recycled, not recycled, but it's constantly being represented into the story, and I think it's really smart. I feel like it keeps the story cohesive and the themes present and prevalent.
I mean, in terms of reoccurring things, I think one thing that reoccurs a lot is the Fullmetal, like the people running towards Alphonse, calling him the Fullmetal Alchemist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That
I
joke.
think that's hilarious.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
that
good.
Common trope
yeah.
the brother has to live with, no matter
Yeah. What do you guys think of that, by the way?
the name.
The comedy aspect of the series.
Oh, okay.
So I think it. Obviously, this is not a comedy manga forward kind of series. So I think
Mhm.
it plays just enough to have some fun jokes without it going overboard, so that you get annoyed by it. So I think it has a really good balance.
Mhm.
Yeah. It keeps the seriousness not too high, because they're all looking for things, and they're all searching for goals, and they're all put in very stressful situations. So jokes here and there lighten up the mood a bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. I think her sense of comedic timing is really good. And she knows exactly, like Max said, you know, when to be serious and when to lighten the mood a little bit, which is perfect. I think it really, you know, keeps the story from being repetitive
I also feel that
and
this
monotonous.
chapter has like really quickly put us in a world where you could have an idea of how advanced the technology is. So there's like a radio, there's guns, but at the same time there's like there's no fancy like high tech stuff either. So it has like a gritty feel without feeling like a medieval kind of setting. Um,
Hmm.
so there's like religion too, obviously. The reason why people believe this guy is like some god given being is that they understand alchemy. They all understand alchemy, how alchemy works, which is that you have to have one for one. But this guy is
Actually, there. That's different than the one shot. In this case, I don't believe that these people in this town specifically know about alchemy.
so I
It
think that,
seems like a bit of a foreign concept. Yeah, I have to agree with Max
Because you
there.
see in like the later pages that Alphonse does alchemy to fix the radio,
mhm.
and they're all like, it's magical divine power. So
Well, I think it's more that for like there's like the reason why they believe this guy is like a magical dude is that he seemingly because he has the Philosopher's Stone, he's able to create something from nothing. So that's why they're impressed.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Like
oh
his
yeah,
alchemy
'cause-
transcends
Yeah,
alchemy,
this
like
this
it's
dude's
miracle
alchemy
alchemy.
is
yeah.
like far beyond what standard alchemy is, and that's why it's impressive. At
But
least,
even then, before with the radio concept, like they didn't understand what the pentagram circle.
yeah, I guess that does make sense. Yeah, maybe I'm looking too far ahead.
But in the later chapters, you see that some of them do understand what alchemy is. I think it's just this town particular that they portray.
Mm-hmm, Briefly touching back on that, sorry guys, I hate to go back like this
Go
and
for it.
halt the conversation. You guys were talking about the setting in which the world takes place.
Hmm.
What would you classify the world itself as? Would you say it's like Victorian steampunk type of thing? Like what would you call it? 'Cause I'm actually curious because it is a very, I don't want to say vague world setting, but it's unique for sure.
I think it's like roughly like the industrial age, like the beginning where you start seeing like steam engines and stuff like that.
I
Mm,
would say it's like after World War II, like just like 1950.
Oh shit, you're putting a
yeah.
date too?
Damn, that's
Because
well, I
they have
think they have a
cannons
date
and
in it,
everything. They
right?
have
They do have a
automatic
date in
weapons,
it.
Oh, they might
but they
actually,
still
yes.
use
Yeah, it's
swords
like in the
and stuff.
1940s or something. Yeah, that's wow. That's really smart. Damn. So, is that what is that classified as that era? Like, would you call like in the sense or in the same style as steampunk and
Yeah, I think it's
cyberpunk and
definitely
stuff like that?
steampunk. Well, not cyberpunk, but steampunk for sure.
Yeah, no, exactly. Is that a thing though? Because I know the Fable games I would say have that same type of style,
Yeah,
except the alchemy is magic. So what is that
Yeah,
like Industrial
actually, I
Revolution
think
type of thing?
Fable is slightly like 100 years behind this. Fable had a lot more magic. Like, there's no like electrical devices.
yeah, it
Well,
was a lot more
Fable
fantastic.
3 though. Fable 3
Dude,
did
I didn't
have
play
that
anything past
industrial
Fable
revolution.
Fable
1.
3
To
did
me,
have
Fable died at
electricity.
Fable 1.
Oh, dude, Fable 2 is good. Come on. Fable 3 we don't have to talk
Fable 2
about it,
is
but Fable 2 is
fantastic.
good.
He died at Fable 1.
Alright, we're not a gaming
Let's not get
podcast.
it.
We're losing track here. We're losing track here.
Alright.
Okay, but sorry, continuing on with what you guys were saying.
One thing I really like is that they actually play with the fact that Alphonse's body is empty. So, like, for example, Rose is hidden inside, I guess, where the stomach would be.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really clever.
yeah. That's they have a lot of cute moments like that that I can really respect, and it just shows off more quirks about the characters itself. It's a classic example of show don't tell, you know?
Hmm.
Because that's not the only time. Well, not to spoil anything, but that's not the only time that Al does that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, he's did
I
that a
can
few
think of a
times.
few times.
Yeah, he does it later on in the series as well, but we're not going to talk about that. But not only that, but I do like when they're in the church and Rose is trying to convince them to follow Letoism or Leto or whatever it is. I really liked how Ed's notes still include the recipe for a human being.
Right.
Because as someone as people who have read the manga, the foreshadowing there and the way it's planted so organically, I just thought was really cool.
Right.
You know?
And I do. Okay, so one thing is that this priest guy, like, he definitely knows what alchemy is. So he realizes that you need a one for one, but you also need an alchemist circle. And then he's actually impressed that Edward is able to do alchemy without an alchemist circle, which I think is also a good call for future chapters. You get to
Hmm.
learn like how he's able to learn that.
Hmm.
So they also introduced really early on chimeras, like the idea of a chimera,
Yeah.
which later on we'll talk about like why this is important.
Dear
Mm.
God.
The darkness.
And
Dear
and
God.
then they finally reveal why he's called the Fullmetal Alchemist.
That reveal was so.
That was a
I
really
mean,
nice one.
it's really cool. There are these things I like to call anime moments. Like it happens in movies too, like even live action movies where just something is anime. Where there's this big reveal and it's really important and it's cool as hell, and you just gush like you're like a 6-year-old. You know?
One thing I want to note, like when he reveals his metal arm, if you look
Mm-hmm.
at like everywhere around his metal arm, like it's not a clean addition. There's like scars and
No,
stuff,
exactly.
and it looks
Yeah,
like he
yeah,
had
for
to
sure. Like it
suffer
was
for
a
it.
messy process, and you could definitely tell.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I also really like how, if I was an alchemist and I could do what he could do, like, and I pulled out a spear of the ground, like, I definitely wouldn't add extra details like the little dragon thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to make it as simple as possible, so I'm impressed he had the time to do that.
For sure.
Um,
I feel like that goes back to another cute little thing I like that the author does to display their intelligence. Because, obviously doing that as opposed to making a simple spear is difficult, or so we're led to believe, you know?
yeah,
I feel like the author constantly takes the time to display their intelligence, like with the spear, how he can make a very intricate blade out of his arm. That scene in the train where he makes a tunnel that funnels the water into that other cart where the bad guys are. I
right.
feel like that's all really cute moments, but not just cute moments. I feel like it's smart. It's a smart move on the character's part and the author's part to just display this intelligence. And you guys know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, I won't spoil it, but it makes a certain event in the later parts of the series have way more impact because this intelligence that they display is constantly being shown and it's in your face.
Right.
You.
One thing that I really like in the series as a whole, and once
Hmm.
again, I'm not going to spoil ahead, but they actually rely on tactics a lot more. It sort of feels like, how in early Naruto chapters, before it all became about who could fire bigger jutsus,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah,
they
yeah.
had to do
Like,
I place a bomb here and then trick you into going there, and then something
yeah,
explodes and then you get hurt. Um,
like when every battle was like Shikamaru's versus Tamari.
right, yeah, something
Yeah,
like that
basically.
is much. It's much more appealing, and the author just stays consistent to that.
Of course.
Like I don't think it's a big spoiler to say that by the end of it, I don't think Edward is like multiple times stronger than what he is right now.
Yeah.
I would
But
agree.
as you can see in the series, most of the enemies that they'll face
Get
are
stronger.
definitely like stronger than them physically per se.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah, I
he
think.
won't ever be able to overpower them. That's why he'd have to.
I mean, the
rely
best
on-
example is somebody like Alphonse. Like, he's a suit of armor, so it's not like he could grow more muscles or something. So he doesn't get physically stronger. He's already at the physical peak that he is right now.
Mm-hmm. For
Um,
sure.
so there's
Yeah,
no.
no, I totally agree with Max, with what Max said just there. It's constantly a question of outsmarting the people who are better than you in terms of strength and ability, and I think that was really well put, Max.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we can move on to chapter 2.
Actually, there's something in chapter 1 I want to say that they did better in the anime.
Oh, really?
It was
Really?
for the lover of Rose.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I did.
Because they put her there in the story, sort of, but like I don't find her that like great.
Okay.
She's just kind of a believer, and like there's her lover who's dead, and he's gonna bring back. But they show her lover being like his soul was put into a parrot.
Oh, I remember. Oh my
who was
God, you
just
made me
talking
remember
at
this.
Whoa.
so
Yes.
more
Yes.
impactful.
Yes, this
I
is.
do not remember
This
this.
is, I
What
think,
the
the
hell?
2003 one though.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
That's
God,
Oh,
he was
wow.
like, yeah, he gives. Oh my God.
Where and like at one point he just like dies off because
I don't remember that at all. Wow. That is wild.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying the original anime is so much darker than what it has to be. That, like, even like, oh my God, even from the first.
yeah, the
Yo,
first
you just
episode,
blowing
it was
one's
really
mind right now,
strong.
dude.
No,
thought that was
it's
so
not that
well
he blew
done.
my mind. I had that like buried so deep in my psyche,
Oh
in my
man.
memories that he just fucking excavated it.
That is
Oh my
crazy.
God.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah,
That's
so
wild.
if you go and check out like the for 2003 version, just the first episode, like that's really
We should definitely revisit
it
that.
added
Just
so
watch
much more
that, the
depth
three of
to
us.
Rose and like her trauma.
Yeah, right. It lessened the blow almost.
No, it made it so much more worse.
Yeah, exactly. It made it like whatever. It was weird. It's a weird touch for sure.
Yeah.
Oh
I
my goodness.
guess one last foreshadowing is I think he says like somebody flew too close to the sun, which is obviously the Icarus saying.
Yes, yes. I actually. Well, go ahead with what you were gonna say.
Yeah, I think that's also just some foreshadowing of what's about to come ahead. What were you
hmm
about to say?
Well, I was just about to build on what you said. Is that before we move on to chapter 2, I feel like the references and the themes in this manga are very clearly and beautifully displayed early on, and they come back, the recurring themes, and that's something that I brought up with the dogs of the army. The dogs of the army saying, but I really appreciate how the author took the time to carefully build this so well, because these little seeds that she plants in terms of themes and concepts, like the parallel with Icarus, I feel like it's very well woven in the story. But I also see it sometimes in more subtle things, and this just might be me, interpreting it differently. But I feel like Ed's notes about what makes a human being, which I talked about earlier, I feel like it displays his stubbornness a lot.
Mm-hmm.
His refusal to not act in defiance of the God in air quotes of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just he as soon as I feel like him having the notes just shows that despite all the trauma that's happened to him, he's not willing to give up, which can show an admiral, headstrong attitude, but it can also show stubbornness. And these are themes that are present, and they're sprinkled throughout the story, and I think it's really nice.
Yep.
do, do you think so?
Yeah. Well, I'm just revisiting it right now. Like the saying isn't like put in forcibly. Like I'm looking the Leto guy. Well, the sun god is called Leto. So it's like flying too close to the sun, and there's the sun god.
Exactly. You see, it's like it can be subtle, but it's there, and I just when you see it, it makes you appreciate the story so much more.
Right. I think we can move on to chapter 2.
Sure.
So Max, will you entail us with what happens?
So chapter 2 is a continuation of chapter 1, naturally.
Oh, okay.
So they continue to face off against against the high priest.
Mm-hmm.
But they also flash back to their childhood, where they were trying to bring their mother back, and of what happened, which is Alphonse lost his body, and Edward lost his arm and his leg. So this is a big point in the story, because this is where they lose a lot of their sanity and hope, and they lose the chance to bring back their mother, because what they brought back isn't exactly human per se.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot to like. So just this isn't the full origin story, and I think next week when we dive into chapters 6 to 25, it's like it does a better roundup of what exactly happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I really wanted to note is that in like the 5th or 6th page, you can see the Alphonse suit right next to a different suit. And I think that all that really means that there was a 50-50 chance that Alphonse was going to be in the other suit.
Yeah.
and I would have hated that suit.
That was probably the author designing Alphonse's character and seeing the first and second design, and she was like, "Yeah, that first one's gross. Let's move on to bigger and better things here."
Yeah, I think that was really funny.
Well, honestly, just before we continue for these next couple of chapters until chapter 5, for obvious reasons, I feel like what these chapters show is more of not the same in terms of plot and context, but in terms of themes and stuff. And we learn a lot about the personalities of the characters itself, like the characters themselves, rather. Like for instance, in chapter 2, when he cons that government official and sells the deed to the villagers for practically, I guess in terms you could say, peanuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean all he did was trade the piece of paper for a free meal or whatever it was. just to develop the characters. I feel like that's what these next few chapters do. Like
Mhm.
while they're intelligent and they seem, you know, asshole-ish, I guess, or at least Ed does, he's always gonna end up doing the right thing, and I feel like that's kind of important in the main character because otherwise you can't really relate to him and you can't really, vote for him, I guess, like vouch for him
Right.
or encourage him. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're trying to say.
Mm.
Um,
Well, he's trying to do everything he can, but like through proper channels.
Yeah, exactly.
He
That's
is
exact.
he's being a scumbag, but in his own way. He doesn't want to outright defy, but he'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's not gonna. He follows that saying of give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish and he'll never go hungry.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want to make them money because it won't solve their problems. And obviously the villagers and the reader are led to believe that he's kind of a scumbag for doing that. But he turns around and does that. He turns the stone and the gold bars or whatever it is, and then he returns just for the free meal, and
all
it's a
right. Well,
party.
I guess one easy way to say is if he were a D&D character, do you think he would be like lawful neutral, lawful
He is
good,
chaotic good to the max, my
chaotic
dude.
good?
To the max. Are you kidding me?
All right.
On the greater end of chaotic.
So all this happens in chapter 3, but back to chapter 2.
Yeah, sorry about
Right.
that. Well, no, wait.
Yes, it's.
Oh, you're
chapter
absolutely
Yes.
right. That is chapter 3. Sorry about that.
That's
I got
alright.
confused.
She shows her style in the fighting that they do,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
which I find is actually really awesome. She does great work. Like the transmutation, like they show sort of the building of the Gatling gun.
Oh, can we
Oh.
just talk about how he transmute his arm into a blade? I think that was funny.
The end there. Or-
Yeah, like midway through the chapter, and then
Who's it?
Edward transmutes his automail arm into a blade
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
obviously just metal.
Uh-huh.
And I just think like you could see like she takes some fun with this scene because the facial expression and how everything is like planned out.
Yeah, this is the shark blade, isn't it?
Yeah, the sharp blade.
Yeah.
The weird shark blade. At the same time, you can see you make more simple like walls and stuff like that. So there's like a mix of both melee and like long range stuff.
For sure. Yeah, I feel like you both are saying. I feel the combat going back to having to strategize and stuff. I feel the combat is very smart. It's not over the top, despite the fact that there's science magic.
Right. So like in most animes or mangas, I think like when he pulled out a machine gun, the mangaka would have just made the main character pull out an even bigger gun, and it'd just be like a big gun stare down. Instead, like they
or like a
retreat.
small gun, but he'd be more skilled or something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think like running away and putting up a wall is probably the best idea, and he does that.
Exactly. It's all really cleverly planned. The choreography is nice, like Max said. The combat itself and the style in which they fight is really cool.
Yeah.
I think nothing but praise, honestly. Do you guys have any negative things to say about these first 2 chapters or first 3 chapters rather?
First 2 chapters. Let's see. I did find that sometimes I don't know if she does it on purpose, but the backgrounds are sometimes either empty or really detailed. I don't know if that's intentional. Maybe it's just a time-saving thing.
That's not something I noticed, but I do understand what you're saying.
Like,
Most.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry? No, go ahead. I couldn't hear you. You cut off.
Like,
I mean, some corridors just don't have any.
There's like pointless.
They're non-ending. There are no doors in like later on or something. So
okay,
that's a little strange, but.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty much what I meant. Overall, I really like it. One thing I really do appreciate is how, without changing the facial expression of Alphonse's helmet, he's still able to convey emotions. So depending on the angle that you see him, so for example, when Alphonse first wakes up and finds his brother without an arm and a leg, he's like laying down, and you could tell that he's like showing empathy and compassion.
Right.
On the other hand, when he's talking to the priest, he goes like, the come at me fingers, and he looks intimidating.
Yeah.
So his whole body language, but she portrays that really well. His body language towards the
Exactly.
scenario.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. I
all
agree. I
without
agree
changing
completely.
the facial expression.
I
Or
agree
whenever it's
completely.
awkward, she sort of blurs him out. And you
Yeah,
have
exactly.
two
She makes him like a little
thoughts.
doofy looking peg
Yes.
or whatever. Yeah, I think that's really funny. But I totally agree with you guys. She uses the art beautifully to demonstrate how he's feeling with like when he found Elric without a leg and an arm. He has those shaky lines around him and he's visibly panicking. And when we get to chapter 5, we won't say what, but at some point he looks really intimidating. You know, he's the one who's keeping control of the situation, but at the same time, if he warns another character that if they push the matter any further, he won't hesitate to kick their ass, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, like, whenever you see just the face of the helmet without the eyes, it also signifies, like, he's in deep thought and stuff like that,
Yeah, totally. I think I agree completely.
which is incredibly impressive without ever changing the facial expression
For
of the
sure.
character.
That's mastery of bodily proportions and just body language itself, like Max and you were saying. It's really smart. I like it.
So I guess we could sort of quickly go over the plot twist of the chapter, which is that it's a fake Philosopher Stone, and then his transmutation backfires like midway through something, so that his
Oh,
arm
can we
becomes.
can we talk about that hand? That is so gross. It's so nasty. Not to mention one of the tubes just leads out from into his arm and out, but it's a hollow tube. So how is blood not pouring out of that tube?
And then there's like
That's
his fourth and his fifth finger are like metallic now, like
yeah,
metallic bits.
but those are nitpicks. It's really nasty, and I think it goes to it effectively shows how alchemy can very much go wrong if handled poorly.
Well, I think it's just that this guy took a shortcut, and then like it's pretty much the
The
Icarus thing.
backlash
It's the
to
Icarus
his
thing.
shortcut, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and that goes to build the system or the power system of alchemy itself. You know, just to show that there are limits and you can't just cheat your way to being powerful and stuff like that.
Right. I do appreciate that Edward like summons. Well, he like wakes up the statue to beat the guy with,
Yeah, that was funny. I like that. Oh my God, that was really funny.
and then it pretty much ends with. Well, it doesn't end. Well, like there's like the final scene with Rosa where he asks him. He asks her to stand up and walk because she
Yeah,
has
that's
perfect legs to stand on.
That's the thing where it came.
that's
to
like a
part
shot
where
at
they
himself right there.
portrayed her. Like it wasn't. It's like her at that end scene doesn't seem like that's super important. Like
hmm
her loss and everything because you don't have really connection with her. She was just there the whole time. The background seeing them kick
Yeah.
ass.
I will say though, Max, I do agree with your statement before that that scene is really powerful. You know, compared to the anime that just made the boyfriend like a parrot or whatever. The plot in this manga is really it ends on a really powerful note with that. You know, and it leads to greater questions like, what do you do when you lose the only thing you could have held on to? You know, what do you do when you lose your rock? And you know, I think Ed says it perfectly. You get up. If you have two legs you could walk on. You get up and you move on.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great message right there.
Yeah, and then the chapter just ends with the introduction of two characters that will become more important later on.
Very-
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And that goes back to what we were saying before about the introduction of, you know, concepts and themes and characters and plot elements early on in the story.
Right, so like we learned that this stone was given to him by them, so we understand that there's a higher power.
Exactly.
We
And
know,
these two mysterious figures, and like we see an alchemy symbol on one's chest and one's tongue.
Mhm.
Exactly. And it goes back to the world building again, and you're curious to find out who these people are and what it means, you know?
and then we see like a power difference because the lady just one shots him.
Yeah, with her Wolverine nails. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, that's funny. Gets him right in the fucking cue ball. It's hilarious.
So I think in terms of villains, this is a great introductory one. Like this
hmm
guy is so easily hateable.
Oh my God, yeah. He's a dick. He's such an ass. You know, reading back, I honestly forgot not what the plot was because I knew where it ended, obviously, but I forgot what
The midpoints.
yeah, I forgot the little plot points that happened. I swear to God, I thought for a sec that him and Rose were doing some nasty shit, you know? Like she was doing favors to fucking
Oh,
get her boyfriend back. And I was like,
Oh, really?
yeah, and I was like, there's no way the manga is this dark. I can't be remembering this right.
yeah. One thing
And
is that this is a shonen manga.
exactly, so they can't. Well, in recent times, man, shonen manga gets dark. Have you
Right.
seen Goblin Slayer?
Yeah, wait, is it
Oh,
shonen?
wow,
You're
yeah.
sure
Dude,
it's a shonen?
that beginning is
The first
wild, man.
chapter was dark.
That's
Yeah.
crazy, and it doesn't stop getting dark either. Like you see
know,
that
but, like-
shit. Like we're not gonna say it, but you see that often. It happens a lot, and it's weird. Well, not weird, but it's dark. It's although it is weird. But
I mean,
whatever.
that's why the Goblin Slayer is the Goblin Slayer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go. So I wouldn't put it past a shonen manga to do that. Maybe from the time it was a little risque.
Yeah,
and
this is
you couldn't-
2001.
Yeah, so maybe then it was, censorship was a big thing, I guess, with manga, and people had to play it a little safer. But I mean, nowadays, shonen manga could do pretty much anything.
Hmm. Oh, I guess we can move on to chapter 3. I think of all the chapters we're gonna read today, chapter 3 is the least consequential, but it does some world building.
Exactly. It's just a bit of world building, and like I said, it serves to develop the characters and their personalities and stuff. And I feel it's the same with chapter 4, if I'm not mistaken.
4.
Yeah, chapter 4 is it's sort of similar. So I'm not gonna ask Max to sort of summarize the chapter because it's sort of like
already went through that.
yeah, it's sort of like a mix between the one shot. It takes some notes from the one shot with an evil military man at the top.
Yeah.
Greedy. Yeah.
So I think this chapter does help answer the question, where exactly this places in terms of timeline. You can see there's a steam train, there's mines and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is Industrial Revolution age time is what this is, post World War II, like Max was saying.
Right. We could see that, there's these guys don't like the military guys. There's the dog
with
of the
good
army.
reason.
Yeah,
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
There's dogs of the army. The term comes back.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think that if dogs of the army is probably just a general term for the people that just don't like the army.
Exactly. Yeah. But
It's
that's
not
the
like
thing.
just them. It's probably more people. Cause...
It's not just them, but they call everyone in the army this. But it goes deeper than that because Ed and Al are almost, I guess you could say, being used by the army to advance their affairs. They joined the army because they needed access to more knowledge and they needed more, working space to be able to find their bodies again. Yeah. And this is just a consequence of that.
Now, to be fair, I think this won't spoil anything, but I don't think Alphonse ever officially joined the army, though.
Alphonse never.
I think you're right.
He's not.
That's why,
Alchemist,
in this chapter especially, the reason why he's not thrown out is that he doesn't work for the army. He's just a tag along.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. He never becomes a state alchemist. Is that what they call him? Is it a national alchemist? What do they call them in the
manga?
manga?
National or state. I think they use it interchange. Yeah, they use it interchangeably.
Yeah, there you
go. One thing that we learn about Alphonse is that he doesn't need to eat.
True. Yeah, exactly. It's just more character traits and stuff.
Empty shell.
The food wouldn't go anywhere.
That in the first...
would it be a spoiler to talk more about Alphonse and the effects of him living in this armor or being trapped in the armor?
No,
because,
I don't think that's necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because that leads into another interesting point, which is he doesn't need to eat, or he can't eat rather, but he doesn't die of hunger obviously because he's just an inanimate object.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't sleep. And I feel like that's such a super interesting aspect because what does the mind do if you just have 8 hours to yourself of doing nothing? A regular person would die.
Yeah,
right? I'm pretty sure that's a fact.
Or is he just soul? Because it's just
right.
Yeah, no, that goes without saying, obviously, and he doesn't get sleepy and he doesn't feel that. But I mean, can you imagine just having 8 hours of the day to yourself where you can't talk to anyone and it's just quiet and you're just sitting in a room waiting for your brother to wake up because that's how you operate.
I'm pretty sure all of us have once, at least at a certain point, thought I wish I didn't need to sleep and I could just keep going but that's only cool for a day or two, and then at the third day you essentially just go crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, but Alphonse technically doesn't have a sense of stamina per se.
Right.
Okay.
So he can't technically feel fatigue.
He never feels fatigue, but I think he still feels time though.
That's the thing. The
Yeah.
passage of time does have an effect on the brain,
But he
I'd
doesn't have a
assume.
brain. He's just a soul.
Well, we're not going to talk about it because anyway, it's fine. We'll get back to
Okay.
that point
Um,
because you anyway.
right. I think this chapter does set a few extra laws. Like I think in the earlier chapters they said like a 1-for-1 is a law.
Yeah,
This
exact
one is you
trade or
can't.
equivalent
This was
exchange.
you can't transmute gold, so you can't make yourself rich.
Yeah, because it's illegal.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's what I was saying about the rules being much more concise post one shot, and I think that it's just really smart and a carefully constructed power system can go a long way to making your manga go from good to great.
Right.
Also, they also showcase that the what we were talking about before of like time transmutation. He
Hmm.
went back to change it physically. It didn't just disappear after like half an hour.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's totally true.
One last thing is that it sort of helps establish like the ranks. So like even though this dude is the main bad of this chapter is like pretty much the rich guy. Um,
Hmm.
like even he has to bow down to a state alchemist.
Yeah, right. He's pretty unimportant in terms of military ranking and stuff.
Right.
Which, by the way, can we take a second to talk about how crisp that pocket watch looks?
Ooh.
Looks so nice.
I'm pretty sure if you go on Etsy, you could get something like that.
Dude, I'm tempted. I'm gonna start dressing like that just so I can have a pocket watch in my
Oh my
breast
God.
pocket.
What do you think that is?
So nice.
It's like a lion with like a dolphin. It's like
I
a
don't, I don't I don't
merlion.
even know. I just love the design. There's like a pentagram behind it. It's great. I think it's super cool.
Right. Um,
Yeah. Anyway, chapter four. Well, moving on because I mean we pretty much covered everything that happens in this chapter, right?
right.
So
Uh,
chapter four is the train one, right?
yeah, chapter 4 is
Yeah.
a train robbery. I
Well,
don't think we need.
hostage taking. More.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think we need to summarize this much. It's pretty straightforward. There's a bunch of
There's a
guys.
train hijacking, and they're
Yeah.
trying to.
D&D side quest.
Right.
Pretty much is just yeah, but I feel like these early chapters aside from the big ones, the important ones like the first and the fifth which we're about to talk about, it just serves to further explain the rules of alchemy and develop the world a little more as well as the characters and their personalities.
Right. So we get like a first look at Mustang Roy and
True.
is it
True.
Hawkeye or is it yeah, I think it's
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye. Yeah.
Hawkeye.
Yeah, the girl.
Oh, right. Thought you were thinking about
But
the dude with the
can we
glasses.
also
I was like,
talk
do you
about
mean
how lax the security was around the colonel? Like the
Yeah.
guy just got to him casually. This
Well, I
guy's
don't
like pretty high ranked, and he
I
just
don't think
gets.
I just don't think they need to worry that much about him.
I mean,
He's
he must be
sick.
not that great.
I mean, he bodied that dude who hijacked the train in one hit. He was
Yeah.
fine.
I guess what's really cool is that we see more automail.
Yes.
This guy has a
True.
gun for instead of just an arm.
He also has a blade
Oh.
or something, no? At the
He has a
end there,
what? He has
he
a
has
what?
gun blade type scenario.
Yeah, it
think
was
so,
hiding
yes.
in his gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like cool character design stuff. But you know what? That does bring up an interesting point that I wanted to talk about, and it's the fact that kind of like Jutsu and Naruto and stuff, alchemy can be personalized to your style
Right.
or the way you prefer to use it, which I think is super cool, and it makes the characters unique. And it's the same thing for automail because we do see a lot of automail people, down the line. And I am not gonna lie, some of these side characters, if not for their automail parts, like one has an eye or whatever, and one
Yeah,
has
it'd be really
just
boring.
a bulk, it'd be hard to differentiate them because they're only on this, they're only in the manga for a few pages or a few chapters. So if you forget who's who, then it could be a little confusing. But I feel like that was a really smart way to differentiate your characters.
Right. I think one perfect example is really just the last page. In terms of personalized like alchemy. So we have Mustang Roy who announces himself as the Flame Alchemist, which we'll recognize that Edward is the Fullmetal Alchemist and this guy's the Flame one. So you get an idea of what he could do.
Yeah, exactly. It gives a little sneak peek at what they're capable of. I think that's just great.
I also like there's like different qualities of metal. So like Edward's arm is better quality than this guy's gun, so he cuts it like in half, like a clean cut.
Right.
So that's really
That's
neat
true.
too.
That's really cool. Max, well, I mean, we're asking Max as if he doesn't really know the series, but he does
Right.
because
It's
he's
just that
read this
this is
one.
like his first real time reading through. So, but
Oh, that's true.
you've seen the
I've
series.
seen it all, but
That's true. Well, what did you think of the actual designs in the manga of the Automail?
I thought when he transformed his hand, sort of the sword,
Mm,
it was more closely what they did in the anime.
okay.
So it's clean. It's a clean sort of like sort of like a arm guard cover that just becomes pointy.
Right.
So I thought
Totally.
that could have been a bit better, but
Okay.
it's fine.
So you prefer it in the anime, is what you're saying?
Well, no, because in the anime you see it in motion. Here you just see it as like a quick pick, and sometimes it's not the whole thing. So I thought it's okay. There's
Okay.
nothing. It's not
Okay.
special. It looks like a shield. It looks like what's his face? Captain America has in the war in Wakanda.
Oh, I get you. I get you.
Terribly bad.
The
Right.
Black Panther shield. I get you.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see what you're saying. I could definitely see what you're saying. I get what you're saying. It's obviously easier to showcase something if it's in motion.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get that. That's fine.
I guess we can also just do a quick run of like the relationship between both state alchemists. Like Edward's not happy to see Roy, so you
Yeah,
get an
because he's
idea
his
that
underling.
yeah, he's
Right.
technically ranked higher, but they have the same title and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think Roy sort of knows Edward's background, like he says, like you still haven't restored yourself.
Hmm.
So he knows that Edward has his goal of bringing back his arm and leg.
Yeah, because exactly, you can tell that this character is not only invested in the Elric brothers' story like we are, but he has a part to play in it, right?
Mhm.
And I think the rivalry, or the rivalry, if you can call it that, is really cute.
It's more like the brothers want their freedom, so they probably don't want to get ordered.
Yeah, and he's like their older brother telling them, "Shut up, you can't do that."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think that makes for interesting, interaction
Character dynamic.
options. Exactly. It's a very nice character dynamic, as opposed to if, they just got along. And there's nothing wrong with characters who get along, but I feel like there's just more to work with when there's a bit of a conflict, no matter how minor or how, trivial it is.
Now, I haven't watched too much of the anime, but I do remember the first time they introduced Roy Mustang, and then when he snaps his finger, that was a
Yeah.
really nice scene. I think that's, at least in that specific scene, it's done better in the anime, because wasting like 4 frames to do one snap is a little heavy.
It's a bit much.
Yeah, it is, but it's it goes right back to what we were saying before about how it's easier to display things when they're in motion.
Right.
Obviously, it's easier to show that somebody's snapping if you just do it in motion and it takes 3 frames, but those 3 frames have to be presented in a still manga as well. And if that's what it takes, then that's what you have to do.
Right. I think the last thing is that he has a really cool glove.
I love his glove, dude. I love his I love the designs in this manga so much. It's so
Sort of
good.
Michael Jackson style gloves. I like it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, it's so
He wears it
true.
like a chap, man. He's flexing it out.
He is
He has
stylish.
This sort of cape rope type scenario happening.
Oh,
Man,
all right. Yeah.
Well,
Well, before we move into chapter 5, which, my God, can we talk?
I'm goofing. It's not a cape. It's a jacket.
It's their army code, and most of the militants have it. But can we talk about how clean the character? Like I talked about it before, but can we talk about how clean the character design is?
Right.
I love the character design in this manga. It's really good.
Right, like I think in like for all intents and purposes, these villains in this chapter are pretty throwaway.
Mm-hmm.
But like the amount of detail and like facial features that this main bad has is
Yeah.
actually really cool. For like most other series, he'd be probably his own.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of the thugs all have like a distinct face. There's no 2 that have the same facial features.
Yeah.
Like different body sizes. Like one of them's fat, one of them's chubby, the other one's like toned as shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's like a really good variation. At the same time, like we already talked about it, like none of them look unbelievable in terms of real life. Like this could be somebody like walk past me on the street and I would be okay. I wouldn't look like.
You'd probably be a little concerned, but you could see it.
Yeah, exactly. None of them have like perfect faces.
I
So,
totally understand what you're saying. Yeah.
You say all that, but now I'm looking at a picture of Mustang. I'm like, his face is so plain,
Yeah.
except for his eyes.
Dude,
Like that's the
Mustang,
only real detail of his face, and I'm
fucking
like,
Mustang's a snack, dude. Don't even start. Oh my God. Well, I will say it's really impressive before we move on. I think it's really impressive um, that the artist can fit so many details that stand out in so limited a space. You know, like when all you have to work with is a coat. They managed to put the sleeve. They managed to have that nice little
the
that nice
folds.
little yeah that little fold that flips over the buttons. I guess you can. I don't know what it is or what it's called. You know, you
Oh,
can
you mean at the
see.
collar?
Yeah, just under their neckline, there is
Oh,
that
okay.
there is that flap that goes over their coat for to protect the buttons or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but I really like it. And that it's the sleeves are rolled as well, and there's nice lining around the whole like all the coat and the pockets. And I like how every state alchemist on their design you can see the chain of their watch hanging out.
right, yeah, yeah, that's
The
a really nice
chain makes
touch.
it look so much better, I must
Yeah,
admit.
Right, it almost makes
exactly.
me want to get one of those.
Right? It's great.
Right. One last thing, like we sort of touched about this last chapter, but Alphonse, in the scene where he like bumps his fists, has like shadowing on his eyes that makes him look
Mm,
so much more intimidating.
yeah.
Even though he keeps like the teeth thingies, even that looks a little derpy, but he still looks intimidating. Um,
It does look derpy. I just noticed. Man. Oh, I think it looks great, dude. I love it.
all
It's
right, but yeah,
awesome.
overall, well, I guess one last thing is that I already said that these guys are pretty inconsequential. Would you guys have wanted to make this have a reason to be here? Like the hostage scenario, there's no like because mainly because I've been looking at a lot of Final Fantasy like 7 stuff recently.
Okay.
Okay.
One I don't know if you guys ever played it, but there's like a terrorist group called Avalanche, which your main character plays as, and like I in most manga series like this would probably be like, oh, we're the black eye patches and we're here to do something, and then somewhere down the line like, oh, he caught my guy, um but we'll have to do something else. Do you guys want to expand on this, or do you think this is fine, just make this as a one of?
I think one of is enough. They're just
You
there to put Edward and Colonel in the same ending so that they can follow up on the story with them. They're just,
you're talking strictly about the bandits, yeah?
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
talking strictly about my ends. It's
Okay, I get you. Well, I agree with Max that like, you can't have every villain become important.
right.
Especially at
And
the start.
exactly,
Because
yeah.
you already introduced those two before,
Right.
so you're going to introduce another important
Hmm.
villain now.
And that's probably why they made that villain look so they made him stand out. They gave him a unique design, or the artist gave him a unique design with the eye patch and the ponytail and the automail arm.
Hmm.
It I feel as much as you want to plan out your whole story as a writer, not that I'm a writer or anything, but I assume as much as you want to plan out the whole story, in this type of format where your chapters are being released monthly, based on views and and character popularity, you
Hmm.
don't know, maybe that one character could have come back, but seeing as how he served his purpose, which was to give the Elrics a conflict and then to have them meet Colonel Mustang, like he served his purpose.
Right.
If ever he needed to come back, he could have.
Right. So like I'm just saying, like, the scene where they finally catch the guy and they're like holding his head down. Like in
Yeah,
almost any other series, like I'll get you for this instead of like who are you?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And then like that'd just be something to work on. Anyway, I think overall this chapter, like the last chapter, wasn't too overly consequential. All it really did is help establish the world, introduce two. I guess there's a little more than two, but two bigger characters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the more important character. Can we just, what the hell is his name with the glasses? What
Uh,
what is it Fox Hawkins? What is his
Havoc?
name?
No.
Hammond? No.
no,
Guy with
Havoc.
glasses. You have to be
Havoc
more
is
specific.
the guy who's like taller than Roy Mustang in one of the panels, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
The guy
Havoc
with
is
the
the dude.
glasses, where?
He's the black hair and the glasses. He has a daughter.
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, you mean the doctor?
No. I know what you're talking
No,
about. He's like
no.
another major or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
Major
Oh, that.
something.
I
What's
don't
his
think he's
name?
revealed yet, though. Is
Why
he?
do you want to talk about that?
I'm just curious as to his name because I always forget it.
No, I don't think.
But I love his character.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think
we'll get to
this comes
that.
up just yet. Yes, I
But he
think.
shows up in the fourth chapter
No, he
briefly.
doesn't.
Yeah,
No,
he
no,
does.
no, no. You're looking at another guy with black hair, glasses. That's just an assistant guy.
Yeah.
He's like
Oh, okay.
he's like a radio officer.
Okay, then forget I said anything. It's time.
Yeah,
It's time to put our big boy pants on.
wait, no, you mean little boy pants, so I could pee in these.
Jesus Christ.
Oh
Um,
man.
So
Well, you
I
could start us off. Go ahead.
yeah, I think the best way would just be that there's a little overview. They do a debriefing session. Um, so they talk about sort of what's happening here and there. And then he pretty much has no more leads to help find a way. And by he, I mean Edward. He has like no more leads to find a way how he could fix his body and fix his brother's body. So he asks like if you know anybody who knows more about like specifically about like body changing alchemy. And then he gets introduced through Roy to this guy called Sho Tucker, the life binding alchemist. Um, and this
Hmm.
alchemist specializes in creating chimeras, and more specifically, his finest work is that he created a chimera that can talk. If we go back to chapter one, we sort of remember that a chimera is just like a mix of two animals or something, two or more animals,
Yeah, two
and
creepers or whatever.
yeah,
Two species, yeah.
There
two
you go.
species. So the fact that he created something that can talk is actually quite rare. They do foreshadow. He said that his past creation, he created a chimera that only said, "I want to die."
Oh my god.
So
Oh,
anyway,
fuck this chapter, man. God,
uh,
sucks, but I
they
love it.
they go to the house. Roy brings them to the house actually. So Ed immediately meets a dog. I forget the dog's name. I think it's like
Alexander.
Alexander.
Alexander, yeah.
And then this little girl called Nina, and then finally to Sho Tucker himself. Sho Tucker has like a really messy household because he doesn't have a wife, and then he has like files that he's done research on. So Edward pretty much asks if he's allowed to look through them. We see that in like the closet, he has tons of other species of animals like locked up, probably because he likes to create chimeras for fun.
Well, for his research.
Yeah, for his research.
He does it, it's a hobby.
This would make this even worse.
Yeah, right.
So
Anyway.
while he's doing like a quick study, Sho Tucker receives a call saying that he's gonna get evaluated. So he's like, it's like exam day tomorrow, and needs to do something for Sho. So he's like, okay, I need to do this, and I need my full attention. I probably need you to go home and come back tomorrow. So Edward's like, all right, I get you had to do that, and I had to do this, so I'll come back tomorrow. Uh, this is so hard. So he comes back tomorrow, and
Oh
then
god.
he finds Sho's laying down. He's like, I did it. I created another chimera that can talk. He's like, oh really? You did it? So he goes up to the chimera and he's like, and then the chimera sort of like talks to him. He says like,
He asks for his name or
he
whatever.
asks for his name, and he calls him Edward. He's like, oh, and then he's like, he's impressed because the chimera retains like information
Oh
and can
god.
repeat it back, like sort of like a parrot. Well,
I
smarter like a
hate it.
parrot. And
And then
then
he says
Oh.
Mista, and then it clicks.
Well, I think
And
he
I didn't
says
get
I think in the actual Japanese version she says Nissan.
Oh.
I don't know why it said Mister, but Nissan is like older brother, so I think that's what she said
right,
in the original.
oh god, it's such a hard scene. And then pretty much Edward was already skeptical about how this guy can create a chimera that can talk.
Since his wife 2 years ago.
Right, so he's like,
disappeared
when was the
around
last
same
time you create a talking chimera? The Sho Tucker answers like 2 years ago, and then he's like, and when did your wife leave? And he's like 2 years ago, and then he just puts two and two together and realizes this monster in front of him is actually like the Nina and the dog Alexander that he met yesterday fused together.
But did you mention that Nina was Tucker's daughter, by the way?
Yeah,
Did you
I did,
mention that? Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
fuck. Hey, yo, Max, did you watch the anime in Japanese? Because I know Yuan did.
No, I watch on white TV, so everything was
Oh,
in English.
okay, damn.
I remember
But like
because
they spent so much time on the relationship, like they were together for days.
Yeah, they hyped that up. That was a dick move, man.
And then
That
all of
was
a sudden they did that, and I was
that
like,
was so
"Oh."
awful. Hey, Yuan, you watched in Japanese, yeah?
yeah, I watched in Japanese.
Hey, what do you feel when I say this? Edo, Wado.
I'm taking off my headbuds right now. I'm leaving.
Oh, it sucks. I hate it.
I think the worst thing in the anime is that they sort of made the Chimera retain like the speech patterns of Nina,
Yeah.
Oh,
but like
fuck,
with
man.
like a distorted voice. So you
It's
could
so bad.
it's also, and then like we could see that the dog really loves Nina and Nina really loves the dog, but like I don't think either of them wanted this.
Hey, it gets even worse, right? Because after Tucker's arrested for that illegal, firstly illegal, secondly horrible
Right.
act that he committed, he gets killed by this new character who's introduced, yeah, and he becomes important later.
Thank God.
Yeah, but we don't know his name. He's just this mysterious man who just shows up and kills the guards who are watching Tucker, kills Tucker, sees the Chimera who starts crying because Tucker's dead, and it calls him dad.
Yeah.
And this mysterious man just kills the Chimera too, and it's horrible. It's the worst. It's so bad. I think this is the moment where readers are officially invested. This is the moment that makes or
I could tell you
break.
guys for sure in the original anime, this is where I dropped the anime.
Yeah, this makes or break a Fullmetal Alchemist.
You
fan
dropped
for
it?
sure.
I dropped. Well, this is back in 2003, where I was like
Yeah.
8 years old.
Dude, this shit is scary. It's scary and it's just so disturbing. Ugh.
I remember stomaching through the parrot boyfriend, but I could not stomach this.
It was so bad. Well, having watched it recently, Max, what do you think about it?
I mean, it brings up old memories.
Old
hidden
trauma.
memories.
It was
Oh,
like
man.
when I saw him take care of the dad. Like now, I'm like, good job. But before, I was like, oh my god, you didn't need to take the dog too.
I'm honestly, it's like a
I get
saving
it now.
grace.
Like I think it's good that he took care of the dog for what he believes, because it's like everything that's not God's creation should not be allowed.
Uh-huh.
And so this was just unfortunate. And Nina living inside the dog, and the dog living with Nina seems
So, do you think
it's a problem.
are there Nah, I really don't want. Are there
I don't wanna
personalities
go-
merged, or is
I
it
don't
just
think
Nina
so.
in the dog's body?
Yeah. It's like Nina's the prevailing mind. That's why it can talk.
That's why I
right?
can learn.
Yeah. But oh god. All right. Listen, I don't have too much to say about
Yo,
this
but the
chapter
dog
that's
got
already
good
been
point,
said.
though, right? Like it's nice.
Oh, dude, I'm just looking back
So
right
bad.
now, and the dog is
And
like.
that's another thing. I'm actually curious. Wait, because Alexander's a dude, right?
Yes.
Is the
I don't-
Chimera now
we're
a
not doing
boy?
this. No, we're not doing this.
Oh, you thinking like because
because Nina's a girl, but the dog's a boy. So is it a boy now?
Wait, no, Alexander could be a guy
Is it
name.
just non-gendered? Is it?
I mean, VJ, at this point, like she's in another body. I think that's already a bigger problem than being a guy or a girl.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
I'm looking back right now. Like Nina's like sitting on Alphonse's shoulder.
Just stop. Okay,
It
listen.
shouldn't be like this.
They were together for days. They weren't just.
Well,
It was a
and
couple
here-
days. Wasn't it a couple days?
It was a couple days, but the way that because it's only like five to 7 pages, it feels really short. But
Yeah.
because of that, each like little box conveys so much.
Oh,
I feel like it doesn't. It doesn't convey as much as the anime because anime has more time. So then they
Oh
spread
yeah, then
it
you
out.
add in some music. Oof.
Yeah, exactly, and you can see more time spent together.
Oh yeah.
So you
If
feel
the
bigger
if the manga hits like a BB gun, the anime itself hits like a truck. Like
Yeah.
it's horrible.
Also, can we talk about its feet?
I
The
know
dog's
it's
feet?
so gross. It's so off-putting.
It's like
It doesn't even look like it has fur. It looks like it's just skin and the hair on its head. It's just
Yeah.
nasty, man.
No, it
the
looks
feet
like.
are like a spiky Bugs Bunny type scenario, and it's
Oh
like
god.
So gross. It's so gross, man. Oh, well, anyway, listen. As horrible as it is, nobody can deny that this chapter is fucking brilliant.
Right. I think if anybody who has gone through the series, this is probably top 5 moments.
Dude,
Yeah.
I think it goes past that. Like
No.
chapter 5 is practically, well, this particular scene or
Oh.
subcontained arc or whatever, it's famous. I'd go like I feel like people who haven't seen the show
At least know
know this moment. Like they know the show for this moment. You know?
Right.
I will say that, while the previous chapters present alchemists as being good or evil, this chapter takes that extra step and blurs the line, makes everything a little grayer, and you can see how even good alchemists can be put in a situation where they do things that are very, very questionable and very, very horrible.
But talking about that, they don't explain what would happen to him if he loses his state alchemist.
I think he loses funding.
Yeah, he loses. That's it. He just
he
loses
loses his job.
He's broke.
yeah, he loses his source of income. That's all it is. But I think it goes beyond that too, because if you'll remember when Ed finds out that the Chimera is Nina and Alexander, he attacks Tucker,
Yeah,
and
of course.
and Tucker draws a parallel between himself and the Elric brothers, and he outwardly expresses how similar they are. And the more Ed starts beating the shit out of him, the more he realized that they aren't that different, despite the fact that the circumstances were incredibly different.
Right, because they both technically sinned.
That's the thing. The fact remains that they, the three of them in that room illegally experimented with human life for selfish reasons.
Right.
I know,
And-
but they didn't sin by taking human life. They sinned to bring
Well,
back.
Well,
technically
if
they
we're
didn't
going
take-
there,
That's
he
what
didn't.
their line is. It's
If
not
we're going
saying
there, listen. If we're going there, Nina's technically not dead.
Right.
It's illegal what he did. What he did is illegal because he experimented with human life, but
She's,
so did the Elrics.
She's reformed.
Exactly. Elrics tried to fucking bring somebody back to life, and they created that fucking monstrosity.
which died immediately.
Yeah,
They couldn't support itself.
exactly. And they did it for they did it for self gain.
All right, so I
I mean,
think
you can't say 100% that the thing he made is necessarily Nina. It just has the capacity to learn words. That's it.
But
Yes,
I
but
think
I
it
mean,
has memories though. That's why it says stuff like "Let's play." 'Cause
exactly.
earlier she also says "Let's play."
Not right.
Yeah, Nina's in there somewhere. And it's like I said, it's very different circumstances, and the angle at which it was approached is drastic. How different it is, and it's really morbid what Mr. Tucker did, or Show Tucker, that's his name, right?
Show
Yeah.
Tucker. Well, yeah.
What Tucker did was really morbid and gross, but when you think about it, like the Elrics did something very similar.
Well, I think this
and-
guy's just like a workaholic, and then he's like,
Exactly,
he's
it's
moved
just
past that.
just the passion behind his work just led him to just be consumed by it. Whereas the Elrics, it's just their selfish reasoning for wanting to bring back their mother led to them being consumed by their own selfishness, just like Tucker.
Right. So I think
Was he getting punished at the end of this episode?
Yeah, he was
He
arrested.
gets arrested. He
I
gets
think
arrested.
He was on house arrest or something.
No, he was going to be put in prison, but
Right.
he
I
fucking
mean, did
died.
they state that out? Or I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. When they're on the stairs and Mustang talks to Ed,
Right.
I think he mentions it.
All right.
So I think apart from the big Nina thing, there's a few other things to talk about. So first is that Roy, maybe because he's higher up in the hierarchy, has a file on pretty much all the state alchemists.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think he's in charge of the state alchemist. Is that what it is?
I don't think so. I think he's like in charge of. Maybe he's in
He's
charge of
he's
like.
not in Star because there are a few characters later on that are even higher positioned than him.
Yeah, you're right.
But I
But I
think
mean,
He's
those people
higher,
aren't.
He's a higher
Well,
rank in the army.
I think
okay.
he's just probably higher ranked than everybody in the file.
Yeah.
So
I got you.
there might be somebody else higher.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like his job to look after the people below him, I guess.
Right. We also find out that not every alchemist is suited for combat. Like this guy is pretty much a researcher.
Yeah.
Um,
He's more suited to being an asshole. Is what he is.
man, it's so weird having to sidestep Nina. Oh my god.
It's rough, dude. It's rough. You're very strong for
And then
having
they
explained that.
they show off that last new character that comes in. You guys already talked about the guy with the giant scar.
Yeah, I mentioned him briefly.
Oh, well, we also find out there's an evaluation day, like a test day for all these alchemists, and that
Yeah.
it could be make or break for all of them.
So
Mhm.
does Edward have to take it?
I think
think?
so.
Well,
Oh,
that's the
yes,
thing.
yes.
Because he's not technically doing research that's allowed. So
Well, technically, well, it's not that it's not allowed, but he is looking in a Philosopher's Stones. So I guess his research
it's about
can
augmenting.
No, no.
it can be summed up to that because Philosopher's Stones aren't technically illegal, I don't think.
No. Without wanting to spoil, I could tell you that he has to go through an evaluation day, but it's not related to Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't remember it, but I mean, even then, like
Is there that? There's battle alchemists and then research alchemists. And
it's possible. I mean, also
I
the
can't
circumstances under which he became a state alchemist were very special too.
Right.
So,
Okay. I think a really big one is that by chapter 5, this is considered the first failure of the main characters, especially in contrast with the last chapter where it was like smooth sailing, everything was so easy for them.
the last 3 chapters, man.
Right. Yeah. This one, at least to them, feels like their first loss.
Oh, what a loss it was. So bad.
Once again, I'm looking at Alphonse's shadowed face with like a glowing eyes. Oh, that is such a beautiful scene.
Right, where he threatens that's what I was talking about, where he threatens Tucker. He like threatens Tucker.
Right.
That was a great moment right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because like he stops Ed from killing him basically, and they start walking away, and then Tucker keeps talking that shit, and then Al's like, "You better stop talking."
So I think another thing is that even given the same amount of information, all these guys sort of accept the fact differently. Like Roy Mustang understands what happened, but because he never interacted with Nina, he doesn't have the same emotional burden.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a bittersweet note to end on, that's for sure. I want to state for the record that this is Yuan's fault because he's the one who decided up to when we were reading.
Well, okay. On the other hand, I didn't want to start next episode off with this.
True. I think
Yeah,
that would have been even worse.
Okay. I think one last thing is that at least this X4 head guy, he says Alchemist, like he references God before killing Sho Tucker.
Yeah.
So at least it points to that there's a religion. It's not clear if it's the sun god from chapter 1, but there's like a religion at the same time as alchemy.
Yeah. It's just honestly, it's just great world building.
Mm-hmm.
It's just great. I love it. He's also tan, so you can see that this world is vast and people come from very different places. It's great. I love it.
Then he kills Nina. Oh my god.
Dude, come on. We were just moving past that.
I'm looking at the last panel. You see Nina's dead body next to Sho Tucker's arm. Oh my.
That's so.
This ain't right.
Up. All right. Well, you can go ahead and close us off now.
All right. Well, I promise you, not every episode will end as sad as this.
No.
So we're about an hour and 40 minutes in. It's a little longer than I expected, but I think we did a real deep dive into everything.
Yeah, this one went deep. I mean, the first one had to be a little deep because we talked about general concepts like art and stuff.
Right. Yeah. I think we hit a lot of good places. I already stated once, but if you want to follow us, next episode we're reading up to
chapter.
And next episode we'll read up to chapter 25.
There you go.
That's it.
I usually try to find a good place to end, and I think the 25 is a good place to stop to learn.
Another death. Fantastic. Thank you.
No, I didn't say that. I did not say that. So yeah.
Nina's revenge.
Oh,
Nina Electric Bungalow.
Oh, dude. Jesus.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. If you listened to all of this, that's a goodbye from me. You on?
VJ signing off.
and Max.
All right. See you
Yeah.
next week.